are in the Wildy area, and I promised you that my third stop, we'd be stopping at someone's home, someone who I have admired over the years. I think he's extra special, extraordinary gentleman. I am flattering him, but he also gives a lot of trouble. I know that personally. So, VOB family, as we reminisce Rediffusion, 90 years of broadcasting excellence from Rediffusion to STARCOM Network. I am so honored to be on this side of the mic to talk to Mike. See what I did there? Mike Goddard, good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning to everybody. And as long as I wake up, it's a good morning.
I have no quarrel with that whatsoever. A gentleman who I have had the pleasure of listening to, but today I am going to pick his brain and go down memory lane as he talks to us about some of the radio personalities that worked alongside him and even people who taught you a lot and brought you into the field of broadcasting. So some of the names that you remember and some of the memories that you have, Mike.
You're asking me to go back a long way, to be honest with you.
Just yesterday, you know you're a young yam too.
Yeah, let me tell you how I got to Rediffusion, first of all. I went to Rediffusion to get an application form. And I was told, go to Frank Pardo and get the application form. I went to Frank Pardo. And I didn't only get the application form, I got the job as well.
Just like that, wow.
I got the job. I went to work a couple of days afterward. And my first day at work was the Barbados Workers Union's May Day celebrations at King George V Memorial Park. And there, again, I got to meet some personalities. But before we get to that, let me tell you about some of the people at Rediffusion. Eric Nurse was one of my editors. In fact, he was my second editor. My first editor was Carl Moore. Carl is the best boss in the world because Carl got you to do things that you didn't want to do. Carl, in addition to being an excellent editor, Carl has personality, very laid back and everything. And he would say, Mike, you doing anything? I said, I mean, if I do anything at work. He says, you sure you're not doing anything? I said, no, I'm not doing anything. He said, well, look, something happening down in Bridgetown there. If you're not doing anything, I want you to go down there and check it out for me. And Eric Nurse taught me a lot when it came to things like standards, quality of writing. He had a saying, he said, Goddard, you think the little lady down in Bordens will understand the story that you just wrote?
Oh, wow.
And that taught me to be very simple, not simplistic, but simple in my writing, so that when you write something, everybody understood what you wrote. Les Harris, well, Les was a legend, man. When it came to sports, Les was a walking encyclopedia. And I learned so much from that man. In fact, Les got me into broadcasting, right? Don Norville, who was a good friend of Les and who was a sports editor and who had worked with at The Advocate, he invited me to come and join this Sunday program. It was Sport Light called on Sunday, came in at 1 o'clock. And I became a member of that team even before I went to work at Rediffusion. And I always remember that particular program because I got to sit down with people like Harold Kidney, Don Norville, Louis Braffett, and some of the top sports journalists of the time. And eventually it got around to my turn to go and call the races. And to be honest with you, I hadn't planned to go and call it in the races because the first thing Frank Pardo told me, you're in news, you're not doing racing. And then one day I went to work and I got this phone call saying, Mike, I can't make it to the races today. Can you go up and fill in for me? And that was the beginning and the end of my time on horse racing broadcasts. Olga Lopeseel, of course, beautiful lady. Alfred Pragnell. Alfred was a character, man. But the thing about these people, Carol, is that they had standards. We had standards for everything. There was discipline, standards, and quality, high quality. And you either lived up to that or you fell by the wayside, right? I don't know what's happening to broadcasting nowadays, but those were the standards that we came up with. You just couldn't walk in a studio and go on the air. you had to be checked out, make sure that your grammar was grammatical, right? Make sure that you were pronouncing properly and your diction and everything else. You just didn't walk into these things. So, Rediffusion was and still is an institution as far as I'm concerned, right? It gave me the opportunity to really enhance my whole journalistic career. And to tell you the truth, going to Rediffusion was dynamic in helping me to be the journalist that I became over the years.
Fantastic. Mike Goddard joining us this morning as we reminisce. We're talking about rediffusion. And I am in my 50s now, but people like my son and others, they've never heard of rediffusion and they've certainly never seen a rediffusion box. We had two listeners this morning who still have theirs. What were your favorite programs outside of being a part of the rediffusion team eventually when you got there? What were some of your favorite programs that you remember on rediffusion?
Whoa. To be honest with you, Carl, the first time that I got a rediffusion set was when I came here to live, when I got married. In my house, there was no rediffusion, right? But there was a lady who lived down the street, just in front of us, called Miss Rudder. And it was to her rediffusion we went when we wanted to hear anything, right? So, favorite programs, what to tell you, there were so many, Kid Gerson rides the range, that was one of them. The request programs, news-wise, it was Dateline International, which was one of the big news programs at the time. But all in all, the general production of programs, most of it came from the BBC. And I had the pleasure of being trained at the BBC as well. So I was able to see some of these things being produced and get the history of them and, find out the real ground foundation of some of these things.
I have one more question to ask Mike. A couple of things that stand out your time with rediffusion.
Well, I'm glad that you have just a little time, because I'll be here for the rest of the day. One of the very big things that happened to me while I was at Rediffusion, I got to meet the Queen and spend some time having a conversation with her. I got to meet people like Frank Walcott. Tom Adams was one of my best news sources. And there were a whole lot of other politicians. Maurice Bishop, before he became Prime Minister, anytime Maurice came to Barbados, I got a telephone call telling me he was here. Chetty Jagan from Guyana as well. He would call and say, well, I'm in Barbados. I was able to meet a whole lot of prime ministers from across the Caribbean. And I also got to meet a very special lady at Rediffusion. When I was at Rediffusion, she walked in to Rediffusion and I met this beautiful lady. And she became my queen, my wife. I met her at Rediffusion.
Wow.
So Rediffusion has really played a pivotal role. I got the opportunity to go off to the BBC and train there. I was one of a few Barbadians who did that, including Tom Adams and Janet Lane Clark. That was a very important time in my life. I got to meet some of the top people at the BBC, see how the BBC operated, and come back to Barbados and try to implement some of the things that I'd seen there. Like, for instance, they had a pronunciation unit, a particular department which worked only on dealing with pronunciation of certain names and that kind of thing. So it was an excellent experience for me. It shaped my life, and I thank God that I had the opportunity to really cash in on the particular opportunities that were offered to me by Rediffusion. May God continue to bless those of us who are still around, and that, I hope that we go forward in strength, not forgetting who is in charge, because what is happening in Barbados now is a little bit frightening. We have physical health challenges, we have mental health crisis, and one of the things that we have to deal with is a spiritual health crisis in this country. We have to get back to God one way or the other.
Wow. Well, that is quite a note to end this very special Road Runner as we reminisce, 90 years of broadcasting excellence from Rediffusion to STARCOM Network. Thank you so much, Mike Goddard. Thanks to Peggy Niles. Thank you so much to Honor Gooding for sharing. We saw those Rediffusion boxes that are still here. There's much more to come, and we want to celebrate with you. Yes, you, our VOB, our STARCOM family. I'm Carol Toppin. Have a wonderful day. Thanks to Gabby. Check out our social media pages for the actual visuals of what we've been doing. John the Lion Stout on technical and also making sure we get where we're supposed to go safely. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye now.